Hello folks, today I thought we'd have a little chat about router tables. I've got various routers and I like to keep them in a table because I find them a lot more useful. This one I'm going to show you first is the Elu model. They don't do the Elu brand now, I don't believe. They were taken over by DeWalt. But this is a little table I bought. Originally it's just a small metal table. I'll just show you a picture of it. This is the router I'm using. It's an MOF96E. It's a brilliant little router, and if you watched any of my other videos you'll see it featured recently when I was doing a repair and overhaul on it when the bearings wore out. But I've had it a long time, and this is the original leaflet for the little table we're talking about. This was an accessory kit that I bought at the same time, and again, it's a brilliant little piece of kit. It's top quality. I don't suppose you can buy them anymore. But the problem with it was, although it works fine, it is a very tiny table. So what I've done, I've adapted my table into its own table here. As you can see, if I move the camera, oh, it won't go any wider. That's the router in the table. Show it around this side. Sorry if these pictures are a bit shaky, but I haven't got it fixed on the tripod. I'm just showing you what it sort of looks like, and then we can discuss it a bit more in detail later. That's the table fitted on the bench. I rather than have the table as a permanent feature taking up bench space, because I like to keep my main bench clear. What I've done actually is I've screwed a piece of timber on the bottom of the table. It's just a flat wooden piece of block board. I've screwed a fitting on there, and then I just drop it into the vise, whichever bench I decide to use it on, and then I can simply tighten the vise up like that, and then it's rock solid for use. So that's the one thing I've done. The other thing you'll see I've got some form of dust extraction, if you can see it. There's the sun shining through the window. What sun there is. That's the dust extraction on there. I've just made a little box on the back. It's only a simple thing. The perspex got smashed, so I stuck a bit of duct tape on it. That's why it looks a bit scruffy, but it works fine. And I just pop any sort of on the one bench. I've got it fitted up. I've got a cleaner, a vacuum cleaner fitted underneath, which comes on automatically to suck the dust off there and off the top, and it works fine. And you can see that I've extended the table at both ends. This is the electrical end. I hope you can see this, but it's very awkward trying to film it actually. What I've done, I've put a 13 amp socket, unswitched socket here where I plug the actual router in, and down here I've got the no volt release switch. That's essential if you're using a router, you must have one of those, and an indicator lamp there which comes on when the mains is connected, and that's all that does. Over this end, the little table that I've put on this end, I've just got a little drawer. Excuse me, I apologise for the shakiness. Well, I'm trying to manipulate the tripod. Perhaps it'd be better off the tripod. I'll move the camera down a bit. Try that. You can see I put a little drawer there, which I keep any accessories. I don't keep the cutters in there, but I've got the spanners and a few bits and pieces that went with the table in there. And then I've got some other guides and things that I keep in that little box under there. But otherwise, it's the same this end as the other end. It's just a simple little table with a MDF top. This is the one side, and as you can see that's the other side. And then I've made this contraption on the back for a fence. If you can see that, I've made it as long as possible. But what I have done is set up at the moment, you can use this for doing any sorts of mouldings or anything. But what I've done at the moment, I've got an extension fence on there, and it's designed for cutting a nice square edge on a board, and I'll show you what I've done in a moment. I'll just move the camera. Right, I've just taken the sub fence off, so you can see the basic. That's for just normal router now. It's set up at the moment. You'll notice the router cutter is sat well proud of the fence, but that's because I'm using it for another purpose. But normally what you do, you adjust this knob, loosen these here, loosen this, turn this, and you'll move the cutter backwards and forwards to the right wherever you want it. But in this case I'm going to show you what I'm using it for. This is the thing I use it for most of the time, this particular table. You can see I've got a homemade piece. It's a bit of hardwood, and there's a couple of bolts fitted in it, one each end, and the corresponding holes in the rear table. And the idea is you push that in there when you need to use it. I normally leave this on all the time because I've got several routers and I use them for different purposes. I don't know whether you can see this clearly. It's difficult in the light, but down here there's a piece of Formica, just a strip of Formica, wood grain Formica. It doesn't matter, any strip of Formica would do. If you haven't got any Formica, you can use a very thin piece of hardwood. That's what I used initially because I couldn't find the Formica, but I found some now. And I've just glued that along there, and you'll see the reason for it in a moment. That's only on the one side. Then all I do, I push that onto the table, and then on the back I've got a couple of wing nuts which I tighten up. That one on that side, one each end, just to hold it firm against the... Sorry, I'm getting in the way here. Needs two people doing this really, one to do the filming and one to do the work, but unfortunately my wife, she won't use the camera properly, so I've got to do it all myself. In fact, she'd probably have a go at it, but you probably wouldn't see anything. I hope she didn't watch this, or else I should be in trouble, won't I? Anyway, that's the table fitted on. Now, the reason you have the Formica is, I use this one for making a nice straight edge on the edge of a board. I do a lot of joining pieces together to make a wider board, and you need a really nice smooth couple of edges. Now, I've got a planer thicknesser, but I find it's not always accurate, because when you push it through, the wood can tend to twist a little bit, and you don't always get a perfectly square face. But with this setup, you're going to. So what I do is, with this piece here, that takes up the bit that's cut off. So you've got to adjust the cutter out just so far that it clears that, but no more. If it's too far out, then it won't work properly. If you don't have that there, what happens is you push it over the cutter and it'll work so far, but when it gets to the midway point, this will start to move round and swing round, and then you'll get a taper cut, not a nice straight cut. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the router on, I'm going to put my headphones on, make sure you put those on, and of course, more important I suppose, goggles. Because you do get chips flying, even though I've got a dust extraction system of my own there. So I'll put the goggles on, the headphones on, and we'll switch on. It's going to be a bit noisy. Right, that's the suction on. Oh, it isn't, because I haven't connected it, excuse me. Now, that's the suction on. Right, I've turned it on at the power. I'm going to have to stop that a minute, you can't hear me. Couldn't hear myself think, because I've got headphones on, which makes it worse. I've turned it on at the power, and you can see the little light showing on here. Well, you can't see it because the camera's not on it, is it? Okay, well, there we are. You'll see the little lights come on because the power's connected, but nothing happens till I press that switch. Right, so let's try again. Move that up a bit. Right, I'm going to turn the suction on, which should be noisy, and then the power, and you'll see what happens. Right, power's on. Now press the button. Right, now notice, as soon as I turn it off at the power, it's turned off there as well. So if I turn the power back on now, it won't accidentally come on. That's the reason you want a no volt release cutout on something like this. Now there's the edge. It's not perfect in this case because it's only a rough bit of spruce that I've joined. It's got joins in anyway, just to try. But what you will get is a nice square edge here, for example, that way. And that's the important thing if you're joining wood together. Can you see that? That's nice and square. And if you do two like that, when you glue them together, you're going to get a perfectly flat board, not one like that. If you do it on a thicknesser, you do sometimes get that. I've used this successfully for many years for that guys. So what I tend to do, I keep this one set up for doing that particular purpose. Occasionally I will take it off to put a cutter on for doing mouldings and things, but generally speaking, and it is quite easy as you can see, but you've got to adjust it again. But it's quite handy having it set up for this, because as I've got other routers anyway. But if you want to get a nice straight edge, this is the ideal way. If you haven't got a piece as thin as that, then you can use anything, but you have to make sure the cutter comes out to accommodate it. But the thicker it is, the more waste you've got, obviously, and the deeper cut, so it's not going to be as accurate. The smallest amount you can take off is probably ideal. Also, a good thing to remember about this, if you haven't got a completely straight edge, if you do this several times, it will tend to plane out imperfections in it, and it will make it flat that way as well as endways, if you see what I mean, because it will take out the lumps and bumps by virtue of having this. If you don't have that strip on there, it won't work properly. Of course, you can adjust the cutter up and down depending on how thick. I've got about 1.25 inch straight cutter in there, but it does. If you haven't got one of those, a shorter one to do, it just means you can't edge so thicker pieces. Anyway, I think that's about all there is to say about that one. It's been a useful little table, and I thought somebody might be interested in seeing how, you know, a different aspect of it, how people do things differently. It don't look very posh, but it does the job, and I must say I use it at least once a week, and I've been doing it for years and years and years. Anyway, I hope that's of interest to somebody. In my next video, I'll show you one of my other tables.